Why I wrote this book. It was an evening of summer 2013. While watching a documentary on YouTube, I found myself intrigued by a title among the watch options: The God, the Universe, and Everything Else. It was approximately an hour-long discussion between the finest minds of the 20th century, recorded and released in 1988. The panel included Stephen Hawking, Carl Sagan, and Arthur C. Clarke. The anchor person, Magnus Magnusson, a famous presenter of the BBC TV program series The Mastermind, conducted the session. Carl Sagan was a celebrated American astronomer, cosmologist, astrophysicist, and astrobiologist. His award-winning TV series, A Personal Voyage, released in the 1980s, was the most watched series in the American public television history. Its audience totaled to about 500 million across 60 different countries. Sir Arthur C. Clarke, a renowned British science fiction writer and futurist, introduced the concept of communication satellites long before the technology existed to launch one. Stephen Hawking, as we all know, is an English theoretical physicist and cosmologist. His all-time famous book, A Brief History of Time, written in 1988, has remained a bestseller for many years. I strongly recommend this talk to anyone seriously interested in understanding how the finest Western minds and scientists think. As the title suggests, the talk was about the God, the universe, and things related to both. However, the focus of the talk was Mr. Hawking's book, A Brief History of Time. In his introductory remarks, Magnusson observed, Professor Hawking has just made publishing history by writing a book about hard theoretical science which has outsold even Michael Jackson in the bestseller lists. It is called A Brief History of Time, and we will be talking about the concepts that are in it. Now, Stephen Hawking is engaged in a search for the ultimate answer, a grand unified theory that will explain everything. Turning to Stephen Hawking, he asks, Stephen Hawking, that is quite an agenda. How are you getting on with it? Stephen Hawking responds by saying, in the last 300 years, we have discovered the laws that govern the universe. I think there is a reasonable chance that we may find a complete set of laws by the end of the century if we don't blow ourselves up first. Magnusson addresses Carl Sagan, inquiring, you wrote the introduction of the book and said, this is also a book about God, or perhaps about the absence of God, and Hawking left nothing for a creator to do. Carl Sagan notes, during his explanation, that if we believe in a maker, then the question is, who made the maker, and then who made him? This would be an infinite regress. Discussing the nature of God's existence, Sagan suggested considering two alternative notions. The one popular in the West holds that God is an elderly, oversized white male with a long flowing beard sitting on the throne in the sky, intervening consistently in everything. Another alternative, held by Spinoza and Einstein, was very close to the sum total of the laws of the universe. Now, it would be madness to deny that there are well-defined laws in the universe. If that is what one means by God, then there is no question that God exists. I first read Stephen Hawking's book, A Brief History of Time, in 1999, noticing in the conclusion that he raised very important questions. I quote, "We find ourselves in a bewildering world. We want to make sense of what we see around us and to ask, what is the nature of the universe? What is our place in it? And where did it and we come from? Why is it the way it is?" I reflected on these questions, and it crossed my mind that I should write to Hawking and share with him the grand scheme of God. As I felt, lacking knowledge on the subject was probably leading him to agnosticism. Because of unavoidable circumstances, the purpose could not be achieved, and I almost forgot about it until I was reminded by the video, The God, the Universe, and Everything Else in 2013. I am a firm believer that nothing happens in this world by chance. It is the supreme intelligent being, the God, who plans everything with a purpose. I reflected on the fact that the participants of that talk were all dead except Stephen Hawking, who was said to have merely 2 years of life left by doctors in 1963, but still miraculously survives. Thinking it as an indication from the Almighty, I decided to put my research in order without further delay and send it to him, hoping it might help him overcome his agnosticism. This was my primary intention. However, it later on developed into this full-fledged book. I feel that finding a grand unified theory and to answer the question why this universe was created is not in the realm of science. Science can only tell us how this universe operates, so there is no question of science discovering a grand unified theory enabling it to answer this question. It can only be answered by God, provided He is an intelligent being and not just a set of physical laws. As far as His being is concerned, God is beyond our imagination, for there is nothing comparable to Him in this universe. God mentions this in Quran in chapter Ash-Shura, which is number 42, verse 11. The Arabic. Laysa kamithlihi shay'un wa huwa as-sami'ul basir. Translation. There is nothing like Him, and He is the all-hearer, the all-seer. So we can only know God through His attributes. We would say that God is a conscious and intelligent being, pure from any bad attributes or weaknesses, and simultaneously possessing all good attributes to perfection. Moreover, the notion that everything has a creator is incorrect and, of course, results in an infinite regress as remarked by Carl Sagan. The correct notion would be that every creation has a creator. For instance, a table or a chair brings a concept of carpenter behind it, but a log of wood does not. The reason being that a log of wood does not reflect the application of human mind behind it. There are many who believe that God does not explain the grand unified theory in the Quran, which I term the grand scheme of God. But my 28 years journey with this book proves otherwise. I am presenting an overview of the grand scheme of God, hoping to free friends from the bondage of agnosticism, of which I was once a victim too. Moreover, I strongly feel that the vague and incomplete knowledge of the grand scheme of God causes doubts and confusions in the minds, whereas knowing it completely brings unity to all pieces of the puzzle, whether it pertains to anthropology, paleontology, archaeology, cosmology, creation, evolution, or eschatology. Thus, it eventually and radically alters human thought, inspiring a positive change in society, which in fact is my only purpose of writing this book. Parvez Hashmi, August 2017, Lahore, Pakistan.